Picture Europe in the early 1940s. The entire continent is swallowed by shadow, facing industrial-scale warfare and the systematic looting of history's absolute greatest treasures. And right in the middle of this unprecedented chaos, the most valuable single object ever constructed by human hands just vanishes. It doesn't leave a trail, it doesn't leave a map, it literally disappears into the dark over a matter of days, triggering a massive international mystery that remains entirely unsolved 8 decades later. Welcome to Your Dose of Wowness. Today, in our explainer, we're looking at a story where history, art, and a high-stakes criminal conspiracy completely collide. We're examining a masterpiece that survived wars, revolutions, and the collapse of entire empires, only to be swallowed whole by the Second World War. This is a cold case file on the most brazen act of cultural plunder ever recorded. 36. That is the exact number of hours it took a team of German soldiers from the 32nd Infantry Division, supervised by Nazi art specialists, to brutally dismantle an irreplaceable masterpiece in October 1941. They ripped it straight from the walls of the Catherine Palace near Leningrad. The work was incredibly fast, and it definitely wasn't careful. Fragile components were severely damaged in the rush. Generations of painstaking craftsmanship were completely torn down in just a day and a half. 27. The entire dismantled masterpiece was hastily packed into 27 large wooden crates. These crates were then loaded onto military trucks and transported eastward to Königsberg, which was the historic capital of East Prussia. The Nazi Gauleiter, a man named Erich Koch, took personal charge of the delivery because he considered it his ultimate prize. Imagine that, 27 crates holding the very soul of an empire, driving off into the fog of war. $500 million. That's the staggering modern valuation of what was packed inside those 27 crates. $500 million of sheer, unadulterated artistry. But before we reveal what this object actually is, you have to understand that its value extends far, far beyond money. It represented an absolute peak of human achievement that literally cannot be replicated today. We're talking about the legendary Amber Room, historically known as the 8th wonder of the world. Now, this wasn't just a room with some amber decorations. No, this was 55 square meters of wall panels, constructed almost entirely from 6 tons of Baltic amber. It incorporated brilliant gold leaf, mirrors, and these incredibly intricate Florentine mosaics made of semi-precious stones. Observers who stood inside it under candlelight described the experience as standing inside a living flame. To put that into perspective, let's look at the timeline. In 1701, Danish master Gottfried Wolfram begins construction. Then, in 1716, the King of Prussia actually gifts the incomplete room to Peter the Great of Russia to forge a crucial alliance. It takes 70 years of multi-generational, international human ingenuity to finally complete. And yet, it takes only 36 hours in 1941 for it to be stolen. By late 1943, safely installed in Königsberg Castle, it's cataloged one final time. And after that, the trail goes completely dead. And this brings us to the haunting human cost of this mystery. Alfred Rohde was the director of the Prussian art collections in Königsberg. He was the man who oversaw the room's installation, and he was the last known expert to document its condition in late 1943. Now, in December 1945, Soviet investigators arrived in the ruined city, specifically looking for him to help locate the room. But Rohde and his wife died that exact same day. Official records state it was typhus, but researchers continually question that timing. The final witness took the secret straight to his grave. So, for 80 years, this entire investigation has balanced on a strict, unresolved binary tension. 2 completely opposing theories dictate everything we know about the case. Theory A asserts the Amber Room was destroyed in the final days of the war. Theory B insists it was successfully hidden away and is still waiting in the dark to be discovered. Okay, let's dive into this case for destruction. It begins in April 1945 when Soviet forces stormed Königsberg. Following a fierce 4-day battle, the castle caught fire and burned extensively. When Soviet investigators finally entered the ruins in May 1945, they found small, burned amber fragments right there in the debris. Furthermore, German art historians studying the chaotic evacuation records of the city found absolutely no documentation showing the Amber Room was ever loaded onto a transport. So mainstream historians strongly believe the room burned right there with the castle. But the opposing theory simply refuses to die. Multiple German officials who were interrogated after the war provided compelling accounts of large crates being loaded onto vessels or trains under the cover of night, right before the Soviet assault. Remember Eric Koch, the man with ultimate authority over the room? He survived the war and lived all the way until 1990. Despite numerous interrogations, he never once produced a credible account of the room's fate. His total silence really fuels the belief that those 27 crates were rushed into subterranean Cold War bunkers or salt mines along the Baltic coast. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the entire paradigm shifted in 1991. Following German reunification, researchers identified a single authentic Florentine stone mosaic panel from the Amber Room. It was found in the estate of a deceased German soldier in the city of Weimar. This fragment is the ultimate disruptor. It proves conclusively that at least one piece of the room did not burn in Königsberg. It was carried westward. And if one piece survived, others might literally be sitting unidentified in private attics across Europe right now.
That single fragment absolutely supercharged an already relentless hunt. You have to understand, the search for the Amber Room is not just static history. It's a dynamic, high-stakes treasure hunt spanning 80 years. Governments, independent researchers, and fortune hunters have poured immense resources into tracking down those remaining 26 crates.
The physical efforts to locate the room are just staggering. Beyond the initial 1945 search of the castle ruins, Russian authorities conducted massive excavations in 2008. They dug deep into a network of tunnels beneath the former castle site in modern-day Kaliningrad. They found extensive Nazi-era construction, but unfortunately, no hidden cache. Still, investigators simply refused to let the trail go cold, moving stubbornly from one subterranean lead to the very next.
Today, the search utilizes the most advanced modern technology available. In 2023, a team of Polish researchers used ground-penetrating radar to identify an anomalous underground structure near Minsk Mazowiecki. This location sat directly on a known Nazi transit route used for moving plundered cultural assets westward. They excavated the sites and successfully confirmed a wartime bunker. While the Amber Room wasn't inside, this recent mission absolutely proves the hunt remains highly active and continually generates compelling new targets.
So the crucial point is how the world responded to this enduring absence. 24. That is the number of years it took a highly dedicated team to reconstruct the Amber Room entirely from scratch. Recognizing that the original might never be found, the monumental decision was made to bring the eighth wonder back to life. This massive effort cost roughly $11 million. Notably, the project was partly funded by the German company Ruhrgas AG as a really powerful act of post-reunification cultural restitution and reconciliation. It was finally opened to the public in 2003 by Russian and German leaders, standing as a massive diplomatic and artistic achievement. At its absolute peak, a team of 100 Russian craftsmen worked on the replica. Because amber working at this scale hadn't been practiced since the 18th century, these artisans had to painstakingly rediscover entirely lost techniques. They had to figure out how to heat 6 tons of new Baltic amber to exactly 150 to 200 degrees Celsius just to make it workable without shattering. And the craziest part? They had to do all of this using only pre-war black and white photographs as their visual guide. Which brings us to the philosophical heart of the mystery. The replica inside the Catherine Palace today is visually stunning. It draws 300,000 visitors a year, and it perfectly answers the question of what the room looked like. But the craftsman who built it will tell you immediately it is not the original. The new amber lacks the 250 years of deep, irreplaceable natural aging that enriched the original panels. The new room is a masterpiece, yes, for sure, but it's ultimately a gorgeous monument built in the shape of loss. Which leaves us with the ultimate question. The Weimar fragment proves at least part of the room moved west. The ash in Königsberg suggests the rest burned. But the original amber, if it's hidden in the dark and stable conditions, doesn't decay. It could be waiting, destroyed in the fire or hidden in a bunker, waiting for the right person to dig. Drop your verdict below. And if you have ever stood inside the reconstructed room, tell us what it feels like to stand inside a copy of something that was completely stolen. That is day 43 on Your Dose of Wowness and the beginning of week 7. The Amber Room. 6 tons of amber, 70 years to build, 36 hours to steal, and 80 years missing. One fragment recovered, the rest is somewhere, or nowhere. We have been looking for 80 years, and thank you so much for searching with us. Reaching 43 days of continuous exploration is a profound milestone, and we are incredibly grateful for your deep dedication to unpacking these historical puzzles with us. Please subscribe to Your Dose of Wowness if these explainers are giving you something valuable, the real story with the real evidence, following it wherever it goes. Tomorrow is day 44, and we're looking at the Ark of the Covenant.
It's the most sacred object in the history of 3 religions, last seen 2,600 years ago. Where it went and whether it still exists is a question that has driven wars, expeditions, and entire careers. That's tomorrow. We'll see you then.